Okay. Do you hear me? Yes. All right, we're ready to start the meeting. So I'm calling to order in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Are there any agenda adjustments? So I'll just bring up that when we get to item 8.3 to approve the RSU4 emergency management plan, there is an executive session there. So as you've heard, Jonathan Varney will not be here this evening. So I have some slides to go through with general just knowledge. And then he has the full binder at home, I believe, but I have a partial binder that you can look through, at least get the gist of it, and then we'll go from there. Okay? All right. So the first agenda item here is the superintendent conducts the election of the chairperson. He or she will take over the meeting and complete the remainder of the reorganization items as well as the agenda with the board of directors. So going over this before, I believe I'm going to run the election of the chair and the vice chair and then the chair. That's what we were looking at. But Bob, that's what we remembered was did I do both? Or I do the chair and the chair takes over?
I think you only do the chair.
Okay, and then the chair. Okay, we wanted to, that's why I'm going over it to make sure. Okay, good.
I think Robbie.
Okay. So nominations for the chairperson, and Christy is here with us. She's online as well. Robbie? Okay.
Second.
Any other nominations? So I'll cease the nominations. Do you accept the nomination?
I do.
Okay. So we're going to do roll call vote. Scott, we'll start with you. Laura?
Yes.
Robbie? Brandon? Scott? Okay. Christy?
Yes.
Okay. So you have been elected, Jill, so you can go to the chair position. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, you're getting a good hand. Nice. Well, it's good that we went over things.
All right, so we will continue on to the election of the vice chair. Do I have any nominations for vice chair?
I'd nominate Christy.
Any other nominations?
I nominate Diane.
Any other nominations?
I nominate Scott.
Anyone else? Okay, I will go ahead and cease nominations. So, Christy, do you accept your nomination?
No.
Okay. Diane, do you accept yours? Scott, do you accept yours? No. Okay. All right, so being said, I'll go ahead and call for the roll call vote. Scott?
Yes.
Laura? Yes. Bob?
Yes, Diane.
Thank you. Robbie?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
Liz? Christy?
I will put out voting for Diane.
Yes.
Yes, I am voting for Diane. Thank you.
Welcome, Diane. Now is the assignment of our school board committees. I know I had sent out an email. So has everybody discussed or looked at the committees that we have? Hearing a no.
Yep.
Okay. Does everybody have kind of where they think they would like to go? Okay. Scott?
I would like to do personnel, policy and personnel committee. CAI Technology Committee. Are we having, quick side question, are we having board members on the new Facilities Fields Committee?
Yes.
And that's by written interest only?
Yeah.
So, after you, it kind of came before because of the committee before you approved the new committee. So it would be 3 board members, and we will have to discuss if there's more than 3, 3 that are interested in it. Jill and I can talk about what that process is.
What committee approved the Facilities Committee?
You're
We
gonna
haven't
approve the new
approved
one.
it. Oh,
That's in
sorry.
your
Okay.
packet
It's
tonight.
just
I
in
thought I
your
just heard you
packet.
say the previous committee approved the committee.
Oh, sorry. No. I meant you're kind of saying which committee before we approve that committee. Okay, no problem.
Laura?
Finance and facilities and personnel.
Finance and facilities. And, well, I guess it matters which ones meet the same night.
No, I put them on
They're
opposite nights
opposite
because
nights.
I'm going to be at both. So you saw the schedule, so we put them in opposite.
Well, there's 3.
Right, so we had CIA and technology will meet the same time as facilities and fields, and finance facilities,
Okay, yeah.
correct, will be will
So
not
then
be
my
at the
other
same
one
time.
would be the CIA technology.
Robbie, you still want finance and facilities?
I was gonna volunteer.
Brandon,
Personnel and policy.
just the one? Douglas?
Where's English stand on finance?
Diane? Christine?
Stay on policy and personnel, and then I'll volunteer to be on the new committee. But if there's already somebody from Richfield on that committee, I'm happy to stay on CAI.
So it looks, yeah, because you would be in conflict with CAI going on the new one, but right now we have Sabatis and Litchfield.
I can be flexible, so you let me know when you need it.
So there's only going to be 3 on CAI. Christy goes in.
So we have 5 down in the Personnel and Policy Committee.
Yes.
That would be a quorum of the board.
Yeah.
Right.
So
So
I would, pending the outcome of the new committee, I'd be fine with that one. Instead of
Instead of-
the
okay. So can we remove?
yes.
And that's 4 on finance and facilities. Okay. Does that look correct? That looks good?
looks like 444 right now, depending on Christie, CIA technology.
Okay, that works. So we can go ahead and move down to 3. Consideration of the minutes to approve the minutes of the July 12th, 2023 Board of Directors meeting. Any discussion? Alright, seeing as there's none, I will do a roll call vote. Scott?
Yes.
Laura? Yeah. Bob?
Yes.
Robbie?
Yes.
I'm yes. Brandon?
Yep.
Douglas? Diane? Christy?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So passed. We'll do number 4. We'll move down to public comment. At this time, I will welcome our public to come up to the mic. Once you've come up to the mic, please introduce yourself and what town you are from. Please remember to refrain from using any names or anything like that once up at the mic. Anyone have any comments? Right, so we'll move on to number 5, petitions and communications. Are there any? I have none. reports, the superintendent's report.
Okay, so the report was in the packet, but just, in there were a lot of shout outs and kudos to staff around getting buildings ready, participating in PD, just, kudos to everyone for getting the schools ready. I mean, every person participated in some way to help do summer programming, summer feeding, as well as participating in a lot of our trainings that are coming up for implementation of programming, and our tech department getting things ready, our central office. So it's just, schools don't close and then reopen. There's a lot of work that gets done in between June and starting next week. So lots of kudos for everyone across the district. I shared what the administrators did in the 2-day retreat that we have, which is we're really looking a lot at effective universal instruction around improving Tier 1. And we're continuing our work on NEST, which you heard a lot about last year, which was how do we make schools safe and caring, and expanding that NEST to how do we support students in teaching and learning, which is bringing that universal Tier 1. We also will be reading, and we started that work, Dare to Lead by Brene Brown, which gives administrators an opportunity to really dialogue in a critical friends group this fall as they read certain parts and follow a workbook that is recommended by the book, and just an opportunity to talk and learn a little bit more about how you can lead with vulnerability and getting to know yourself and how you respond during difficult times, how you can celebrate. So it's a very good book, and we're looking forward to doing more with that. And then looking at our building goals and our evaluation system. So a lot was done over those 2 days. Then I noted there were some new hires that were hired during the summer. One was Carolyn Dupree for 6th grade science position, Jonas Sautler for open health position at Oak Hill Middle School. And then we have a science and math teacher that we just hired, TJ Niles, who's coming to us for the math position at Oak Hill High School. Then we did hire for the social worker position, Ginny Campbell. So those positions have been filled. Positions that are open are our guidance counselor position remains open. We have not had candidates, so we're hoping somebody may be listening tonight will apply, but we'll keep pushing for that. And then I talked about the positive behavioral intervention sports PBIS, which is a district-wide initiative. So spoke about that, and also spoke about the BAR model, which has been going on at the middle school for several years, is now going into, at the high school, and is now going into the middle school. So spoke about that. And that Math for Me, we continue to work with the DOE to improve math, and talked about summer projects that went on with ELA and our math departments. And then the added thing is the Carrie Ricker Playground. I don't know how many people have been to the Carrie Ricker Playground and enjoyed that. So we're very excited that our communities have another option for taking their children. And then the Libby Tozier update, since Jonathan is not here, we are having, Serpro will be arriving again tomorrow to again clean the kitchen and our tables in the cafeteria. And so the staff got fully access to the building today. They have been extremely patient and understanding as we work to make that facility a safe place for occupancy. And so then we have the air quality test will be conducted Friday afternoon for the surfaces, and then we're hoping to hear by Monday or Tuesday the results of that. But there is a backup plan. Kathy's working with the lunch staff that will probably have to satellite in lunch on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. In just, you got to have plan A, plan B. They also storing stuff, as stuff products coming in like milk and things like that, looking for alternative storage while they can't get in there. So everybody's been working really hard. Brenda and her crew at Carrie Rick and Libby Tozier been outstanding in flexibility. Okay, now we're going to be here and we're going to be here. Same with the staff. Where can I print things? So it really team effort, and Dustin communicating regularly with staff about what's going on has been important. So I'll let you know the update regarding the test results as we come through. The water is cleared. On the 28th, we have tanks that will be replaced so that we make sure that there is no chance of arsenic levels increasing. So we're feeling very confident things are being addressed before students arrive. So I wanted to make sure you were updated on that.
There-
This might be a question for Kathy, but what were the final numbers for summer school? Do we know? And on the lunch program for summer?
Yeah, I haven't calculated the August one for our high school yet because we're still kind of getting those numbers in. We did serve 3,100 meals this summer between breakfast and lunch.
And how many students did we service for summer school?
In the primary grades, it was like 150 in pre-K 4. And then 5 through 12, I'm still getting the numbers because what we invite and then what the attendance is. So I will have that at my first board report meeting next time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, excuse me, a question on the mold. How much material in the classrooms was lost? Because I imagine anything that would absorb water, books, papers, all that stuff probably had to be replaced.
It was mostly carpets. It was in more the flooring than the walls and materials.
Okay.
So, and it was contained more in one area. So we worked quickly to mitigate any loss of that sort.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Katie. We will move down into old business 7.1 to continue budget discussions in response to the unsuccessful referendum vote and review the new timeline.
Okay, so I'm going to do kind of a presentation where we've been and what we're proposing moving forward. And then we'll have, Jill will be facilitating further discussion. Okay, so I'm going to jump in. So this was the list of reductions at your July 12th meeting that went to the public hearing, okay, the public meeting. So just to review that, at that time, we had started at 368,000 approximately reduction, and then we talked about adding the LPN position in. So when that was added in to replace the reduction of a nurse position, that took the reduction to $323,758.26. And so you can see there what made up that $323,000. Any questions on that around where we've been? And we're going to hand out so you have a bigger picture of that. So when that occurred, the difference between FY23 total budget and this new proposed budget was $837,816.56. So we were at an increase of 3.93% over last year's budget. So that's just giving people an update of where we were on July 27th when we went to the public meeting and it was approved to go to referendum. What that did for local taxes, is, if we can remember, we have required local share, which is that amount that needs to be raised in order to get our state funding. And then we have the additional local share, the adult education amount, and the school lunch amount, which gave a total for each town of how much had to be raised. So that's just giving the overview of what had to be raised by each town. What was the impact of that? So by each town, you can see that there was, to Litchfield, a 9.5% increase, Sabattis 13.45%, Wales 10.66%, and overall, there was an increase of 11.29% to the local taxes. And then you saw the estimated value for a home of 100,000 to 150,000 to 200,000. So this is where what went to referendum that was unsuccessful. So now what, right? So we, we're going with the assumption that it needs to be lower, right? We're going with the assumption that taxpayers are saying that that's still too much of a commitment from taxes to the school budget. So we put a new list together, and so we're going to hand that out so that you have it. And we're going to go through that, and I'm going to explain things. So when we're doing this process, we talk a lot. There's a lot of conversation about where can we reduce. That the number one thing is we have people in positions right now, and we want to keep the staff we have, right? We've hired people. We've made commitments to people. And so every position that has been reduced at this point was not filled, right? Except for one. And that one was reduced with the first budget reduction. From here on out, it's been open positions. This is the last of what's open. So if we go any further, we're now impacting people's lives. They're in jobs. They've done what they need to plan. So we really had to think through, okay, what can we reduce that maintains our programming, maintains our current staffing that we have on the books. As I explained to you, we have a guidance position that has had 0 applicants. So it has not been a flurry of applicants for positions. And that's across the state. This year, they've made 2 emergency certificates for math and science at the high school level. If they're offering that statewide, then those are positions that are very hard right now to fill. So when you start at priority 1, we looked at the travel. That came up at the public meeting, travel for the central office. So we took a deeper dive into that and what has been the cost in that center historically. What can we do to reduce that and be more efficient on who does certain travel for certain tasks? So we reduced that by $2,000, that line. Then when working with Norma Jean on the technology team, remember, they've been reduced a technician. So in that reduction, we talked a lot about adding additional days to 2 technicians so that there was more summer time put forth around what they could get done. So we were nervous with a reduction that would we get everything done? to start the school year, and then how can we maintain? So we added additional days for next year. Well, in talking with Norma Jean, we said, how did your team do this summer? And she did a really effective job of creating a calendar that was updated probably daily around where their workload was, where was the focus, and really managing that in a very efficient way, and feels very confident that she will not need that this coming summer because of how well this summer went. Of course, we're going to keep evaluating it to make sure that our team has what they need, especially if they get reduced another technician position next year. We may bring back this item. Then we have inter-office mail. Right now, we do it 5 days a week. We have someone come, pick up, and deliver mail. So we would reduce that to 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. That was a $3,000. We don't know the impact of that yet. But when you're looking anywhere to see if you can trim down, that was an area. The next one is the special education tuition. And as we all know, this was a huge jump because we have to budget for 100% attendance of our students at special purpose programs. And we were advised to add 6% to that. So the Department of Ed, when they said, when you're budgeting, you need to budget at 100% and you need to add 6%. So we've done that. So we met again with Nancy, the director of special ed, and we really talked about all the buckets and what's available for funding. And she has been really amazing to say, okay, I think we can do this. I think we can move it to this bucket. You know, I'm nervous, but I understand what you're doing, what you have to do in order to save positions of people that are already in positions. So we have local entitlement, which is grant funds. And now we know the carryover on that grant funds. And so in local entitlement, we have a lot of transportation in there. So what we're going to do is take the carryover and put that towards that tuition that was budgeted in the local entitlement and open up some area to do tuition. So we're moving $50,000 of general fund tuition into local entitlement grant. So she's going to rewrite the grant to make sure we're accounting for that. Then we have course reimbursement, which you've seen before, which was the teachers taking courses. That line last year was $25,000, and we told you, there's just a very high need. Our teachers really go out there and get coursework to better themselves as teachers, to continue to get their master's degree, and that's a benefit to them is we pay for that because we benefit from that. So we had increased it to $75,000. You reduced it last time to $65,000. We're reducing it again, which is what we looked for reducing that last time. Remember, we had $25,000 that we were going to reduce last time. The board decided to reduce $10,000, not the total $25,000. So that's back here. It still leaves $50,000 in course reimbursement funds. So we have doubled that. We are responding to the need. And Kathy will continue to work with her grant funds to make sure we're covering those. And we have talked to the teachers union. We're going to do our best to do it, and then we may have to make a wait list, start keeping track of, okay, we hit our line. Who are these people that we have to make sure we loop back to? Okay, so we feel confident that working with staff to make sure they get their course reimbursements in early, so that we can start tracking what their needs are, that we can meet that. Now those are non-positional. Now we're getting into positions. So I'm going to talk about these positions, and then I'm going to give you some data. I'm going to show you impact of that. So the one position, as you remember, Norma Jean and Jonathan both worked within the departments to make reductions. This is a reduction after they made reductions. So you can imagine that they're feeling like, okay, they're working as a team. They understand the needs. And so that administrative assistant position that was supposed to support technology and transportation is on the reduction. So it hasn't been hired, and we haven't advertised knowing the budget had not passed. Okay. Then we have the science position, which you have heard about, and we have data on the impact of that. Ed Zuis and Marco and Mel Gagnon have been working on this. That's why I have an open seat here if they want to talk more about that. And then we have the open grade 4 position at Carrie Ricker. I'll show you the impact of that. And then we had a recent resignation for a special education teacher position. And so you'll see impact of that. So we right now feel comfortable that these would be the 4 positions. They're unfilled. And we believe we can program adequately with this reduction. So I'm going to show you impact.
Before the impact, can I
Sure.
just ask the question?
Sure.
So we have a really significant difference in the cost for each of these teaching positions.
Correct.
The $100,000 for a science position, I believe our current wage scale is somewhere around at the top, around 60,000 to 65, somewhere around there, current contract.
This is
So
yeah.
adding whole family at 25,000 gets us up to 85,000. Dental, but we wouldn't have that for the grade 4 position.
Well,
Could it be?
The difference between those positions is that the high school science position was an open position as we entered the budget season. So the 2 positions, the grade 4 and the special ed position, we are paying for July and August of the folks who have exited because their contract years offset from our budget year. So we're not realizing the full weight of those 2 salaries because we are, encumbered to pay for the 2 months of the folks who exited. Whereas the science position, we can cut that full position amount because it's a hypothetical position. It's not a real person that we are paying off of the remainder of their contract.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Next. So impact of the science position. So this is the original science plan for 2023-2024. So you can see the courses offered by teacher and the number of students. Then in red are those programs that will not, that either have been absorbed, which we'll see in the next, or will not be offered. For example, robotics will not be offered as an elective class. They still have a robotics, I believe, club after school. And so they're offering computer science. And I think there's been discussion about would it be computer science this year, and then next year would it be robotics? So, trying to meet students' needs of where they are, what they are interested in. So this is what was before the reduction. And this is where they are in their planning down a science teacher. And so you can see the numbers in the classrooms and then the courses. This is a position we have not had a viable candidate for. We did advertise for both math and science, thinking if we get one, it's better than not having any. And so we did advertise for both. And we have not had a viable candidate for this position as well. So I don't know if Ed is here and wants to speak more, or if Marco or Mel would like to speak. Do you want to make any more comments on that one? Okay. Sure. Why don't you come up? And I want to say, I know it was difficult on this department, so I want to acknowledge that. And Ed Zuis did, he really worked hard with Mel and Marco to really think what can they offer with the team that makes sense. So I know it was not easy, and I do want to recognize that this was not easy.
Hi, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. So Mel and I sat, as Katie said, with Mr. Zewis, and as he's the department head, and worked through, what makes the most sense in regards to, the changes that have been outlined. I want to apologize. Some of the information on the first chart, there were some coloring that's wrong, but it's still, as far as the end result is concerned, this slide is completely accurate. And just so some numbers here for you, and some processes that took place. Normally, our AP biology classes are 2 sections. There's 2 of those that are a period and a half apiece, and so we've reduced that to 1 section that is 1 period. The nice thing about this is that Mel spent a fair amount of time working on the master schedule. Had we known prior to building the master schedule, we would have been able to kind of move things around to be a better fit for our students. But this one in particular, the AP biology, has worked out really well in the sense that we're able to condense those sections that I mentioned originally and move them into 1 section so that no students lose out in regards to that AP biology class. So I appreciate Mel working on that. As Katie mentioned, robotics was canceled. That's 5 students that were impacted. She also mentioned that we do have that as a club right now. And then, there is discussion. We do this oftentimes with our AP classes where we'll offer one year and one the next so that students can still participate in those subject areas. Let's see, computer science was moved to another period in order for one of our teachers, Mr. Crocker, to pick up a section of investigations in science, and 4 students were impacted by that change. Natural disasters and infectious diseases, 2 elective courses were canceled. That's 12 students impacted, 6 for the first semester, 6 for the second semester. Investigations biology was reduced to 1 section, and 6 students were shifted to a regular biology class due to the shift. And last but not least, we reduced our biology sections from 6 to 5, making them a little bit bigger. And these are the numbers, the accurate numbers at this point in time.
Thank you. I think that covers. The schedules have been changed. Erin Cloutier had big hands in this too, so I just want to make sure we give her some credit. We spent much of yesterday working on this and getting students scheduled as best we could, so with the least amount of impact.
And thank you, Mel. Yes, the guidance office, Aaron and Mel, having to take everything and rearrange, and I know that parents have been calling, how can I, what can we do with the schedule to pick up some other different classes? So, it does add extra work for them, obviously, but I really appreciate doing everything you can to mitigate the impact on students and trying to help students get into classes that they would like to take. I really appreciate that. A lot of hard work.
So we didn't have a viable candidate. So what would we do 2 weeks from now when we weren't hired one? Try and get long-term substitute that's qualified.
I mean, it's a great question, Bob.
Right. I mean, so we don't have a science. We don't have a person in place. We don't have any viable candidates. It's a statewide issue. Yeah. Chances are we're not going to get one between now and when school starts. Maybe not. If you don't have one by the time school starts, you're not going to have one until probably next semester or next year.
Right, January.
Nobody's moving in October.
I mean, it's an excellent point, Bob. So, my apologies. I need to interrupt there with my own cell phone in my pocket there. So anyway, the question was what now? I'm hiring a biology. What am I doing? A science teacher? That's what it was. Yes. So what am I going to do if nobody's there? That was asking Siri. That's what that was. So I think essentially the way this will work, Bob, is, I mean, if we're lucky enough, and we have a candidate, I mean, we would build them into the the schedule is, I think, ultimately what we would have to do. We would create sections. We would move students into those courses, and we would build it from there. Obviously a more natural place for that to happen, but you never know. Timing wise would be to have it happen for second semester. But, like you said, it could be a couple of weeks and somebody's like, I'm going to throw my name in the ring and see what happens.
But the new schedule is the one that you would have to start school with, basically, because you wouldn't have that.
That's correct.
That fifth teacher.
That's correct. That is correct.
So, in the short term, there's not an impact. It's on the long term where the impact could possibly be felt if we could then get viable candidates. Right, because the new schedule is what you'd have to go with to start school, right? So there's no impact there. Hopefully, we will get viable candidates either at this semester where we can change if the position was in there, or next year when it could be added in under budget or whatever.
I guess the question is, Bob, what are you referring to as far as impact is concerned? Are you talking about somebody new coming on and having a fifth teacher, or starting the school year with 4 teachers?
I'm basically talking about the impact on the students on day one and for the foreseeable future,
Yeah.
since we haven't received viable candidates. The statewide, it's hard to hire anybody.
Right.
We seldom ever get candidates after school starts for positions. Everybody's in place, got their jobs, unless somebody's let go, in which case we probably don't want them, right? So I'm looking at, based upon where we are today with what we know and the personnel we have today, removing this particular position, while it is an impact, I mean, if we filled
you're
it,
looking at it.
if it was,
Yep.
if we filled it, it would, and then we removed it, it would certainly be an impact. If we didn't have time to do the schedule, and people have the schedule, so now it's kind of a minimal impact to start with until somebody ever does turn up.
Well, I mean, I guess that's your determination, as far as the position is concerned, going back, into the budget, or the voters voting on it and it passing. I mean, essentially what we're doing is we're, reacting to that. So we're preparing for the fact that we're starting a school year without a science position. And this is the impact that we have. If at some point in time, as I said a few minutes ago, if for some reason we do have, again, all through this process, we do have the position, we would put it out there. If we did hire somebody, we would then, adjust our scheduling. Would have to.
Right, you wouldn't add classes back in because you'd be midway.
Oh, we might. I think we would, Bob. Yeah.
You could add some of the ones that you're going to remove, robotics or whatever.
I would probably break AP Bio back into the 2 periods with the lab period. I would try to do that. I would put the biology classes back into 6 sections. I wouldn't be able to start robotics, but perhaps, as a second semester class and run it for a half a credit instead of the full credit it normally is.
So you'd be able to adjust everybody's students if you split AP. So for all the other schedules that are out there. So, it's the catch-22, right? I mean,
it is.
it is. Okay.
If
all
it
right,
went back
that's-
to what it was, yes. And if you told me that's what I had to do tonight, that's what I would go home and do. That's what I did here. So we would make it work to the best of students, but some of them, as far as a class that was canceled, like natural disasters, we'd pick it up mid-year. We can't just pick that up 3 or 4 weeks into school, if that's your question. The ones that are running, we can make a little bit smaller and create new sections of. Does that make sense?
Yeah, understanding that everybody's schedule's got to change once you split them up. So it trickles down to their whole schedule. Okay.
Thank you.
Malcolm,
Kristen.
Yeah. So I was looking through the numbers of students that this schedule impact is changing, like impacting. So I guess my question is, for the ones that don't have courses left to take, because those have been eliminated, what's the plan for that? Are they being shifted into one of these offerings, or is it they accessing it from a different place?
So for natural disasters and infectious diseases and robotics, those are the 3 that really aren't, happening and don't have another option. I've emailed those students asking them to contact Miss Cloutier and myself to pick another elective in its place. And the like investigations in biology not happening, those were absorbed into other sections. Same thing with the biology. And, you know, AP biology before this was a section of 11 and a section of 5 or something along those lines. And all of those students were condensed into one section. So it is a shorter period. It's not the period and a half or 2 periods of a lab that it has been in the past. But we looked at it as students would still have an AP biology experience. And I feel like I'm kind of in, you know, survival mode and trying to do what's best for students in that moment.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just ask a quick question? How many science teachers are at the middle school?
Four.
Okay. And then, sorry, one more.
That's okay. No,
and then
this is your opportunity.
for the 5 teachers that positions that have been at the high school, can you tell me just a little bit of when there maybe was 4 and there went to 5? Or has there been 5 for a long time? Or
Yeah, I mean, so I'm going on year 4, so my history is a little absent some of those details. I know since I've started, it's been 5. I don't know if Marco can speak to a change since he's been there, or you know who would predate, who's been around that would know that detail. There you go.
And then, is there any opportunity with like the community college engagement? I know you guys have talked about that in the past and things to still offer students that education.
Questions? Okay, so the next position. I love our clicker. That would be why you here. Okay, so the 4th grade reduction impact. So this is similar that Dustin and his teachers were told this was a position that would be unfilled until the budget passed with the position in it. So they had already been thinking what would happen, what would we do, wherever the classes. When class lists went out, they went out to be determined with the position that we weren't sure would remain or not. So you can see the impact here is with each grade having 5 teachers, and then they discussed as teams and around which grade would have the teacher reduction. And so you can see that it was 4th grade that now has 4 teachers. So the average class size would be 21, and grade 3's average class size would be 15. So the impact to grade 3, there isn't an impact, but it's grade 4 that has the impact. So that, I wanted you to see that. Any questions on that?
With school starting in a week, are students no longer to be determined anymore? Are they already put into classes? So these class size already exist.
Dustin, do you want to come to you're in the hot seat next? No.
So yes, we communicated with all parents on Monday, Monday, what classes they will be in, and all teachers have also sent out letters as well or communicated as well for 4th grade.
The impact has already happened with
Correct.
the teacher there.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Anne?
Question. Out of those kids in 4th grade, how many of those kids are going to
be in special ed and not be in the regular classroom?
Well, it varies. We roughly have about 20% around special education. So it depends if it's math and literacy, just math, how many minutes times 5, et cetera. But about 20% for a certain amount of the day.
So the next one is the recent special education impact. So a lot of, you talk about, okay, is this because of the budget or is this because of situation? So a lot of this gets weighed out, okay? So in meeting with Nancy around caseloads, because we had a teacher resign from the middle school, and the middle school caseload was 18. So we really had to look at caseloads across the district because that caseload has to have a teacher. And so we looked at, again, Carrie Ricker caseload. So this is their caseload before the reduction, okay? So you can see the FLS program had 2, the behavior classroom had 2, resource had 13, and then another resource had 10. So that team really talked about, okay, if we have the reduction, what's that going to look like? So I don't have numbers for caseload because they're really looking at each skill set of the teacher, looking at the needs of the students and their IEP goals to make sure those students are getting what they need in order to grow in their academics and their social and behavioral areas. So one of those teachers has already been talked with, is agreed to move. I have to tell you that teacher has been so gracious around moving and understanding the caseloads, understanding that there's a need, and what she has to offer is a good match for what's needed at the middle school. And that's Julie Fletcher. She really, upset. Obviously, she's leaving her family at Carrie Ricker. However, she's had all the students, I believe, that are on her caseload at the middle school. So she said goodbye to students, and now she'll be back as their teacher. So it kind of worked out well, frankly. So they're working right now around caseload and who's going to be teaching which students, and they're still working on that. And then they'll be notifying parents around what changes have been made. So that would have had to happen regardless of a reduction in the budget. We would have had to do that because the middle school's need was higher than the Carrie Ricker caseloads. So it would have happened, and then we would have had to discuss whether that position would remain open or we would fill it. So it's one of those timing. It was a timing. That's also all the positions, but special education, I talked to a superintendent who still has 3 special ed teacher positions open, is not filled. So that's a challenging area as well to find suitable candidates. But I wanted you to know so that when people ask you, oh my gosh, we've gone down a special ed teacher, you can tell them, well, the needs. You have the numbers, which drove the decision.
Yeah, because we all know that with school starting and new IEPs and all that, do we have any built-in buffer to absorb more students into this scenario?
Well, the average caseload will be 9. I mean, if you average it. Right. Some will have more because resource, you have to look at the needs.
Yeah.
So yes, there is room.
Okay.
I mean, as we talked, if suddenly we had a major influx, I'd have to come back to you and say, we have a problem. Yeah. We have to have another teacher. So, which, everyone is worried about that. Well, what if? Well, we would come back to you and say, we have a problem and we have an issue that we have to solve. Right now, there's enough buffer here that we believe we can absorb it. Mm-hmm.
Can you break down the caseload between grade 3 and grade 4?
Yeah, it wasn't as clean cut. We were going to do that. The before is more clean cut. There was I believe grade 3 is the 13 and grade 4 was the 10. Is that correct, Nia? Yes. So, but I didn't want to do that on the other side because it's not going to be that clean cut. But yes, the 10, it was fourth, and the 13 was third. So what does this new proposed reductions look like? So you can see where you reduce 323,000. Then this is another reduction of 369,000. For now, a total reduction since the original approved budget would be $693,158.26. That would mean budget to budget would be a 2.2% increase, or 468,416. So from FY23's approved budget to this budget, it's a 2.2% increase. So what does that mean to taxes? So I just gave this. You can look at your comparatively, compare each town, but the next slide shows you the total impact. Yeah.
On the tax obligation, we proposed the slide on the screen right now. The only lines that you will see change to, remember, are the additional local for each of the towns. So the required local is fixed. Adult education and school lunch, those are fixed. Those are, what we needed to pay to get our state dollars, and then what was passed in various articles at the first town budget meeting. So the only thing really that has changed from the previous slide, which looks similar, are those second lines for each of the towns.
So you can see now the difference in percentages by town. Now we're at close to a 3% difference in Litchfield, around a 4% in Sabattis, and around a 4% at Wales. So now instead of an overall 11%, it's now 7.41%. So then you can see the impact on a home of 100,000 for each town, and 150 and 200. You can see impact there.
Katie, can you explain to, I guess, the community why, if our budget is under 3% increase year to year, that 7.41% number is where it's at?
So the challenge, this year was the state funds. We did not get an increase in our state allocation. So what happened is, because of increased evaluation, that when we got the calculation for the state dollars, they take the evaluation first, and then they determine how much state dollars. So we get about 11 million in state dollars. So we didn't get, suddenly we've got 500,000 more from the state, right? We didn't. It was like, I think we only received like 170 when it was all set. So then you go to additional local, which is your 50-50, right? So your value, that's, now you're talking taxes about what happened with the valuation, so forth. And the towns really, when we asked, has your mill rate been set and so forth, they're still working through that of what exactly is going to be the overall impact when the school budget officially goes through. So this is local only. So above the 17 million state dollars, we're at 21. That's another $4 million that have to be raised. So if you didn't want to do, we'd have to cut $4 million not to have additional local.
And if I can add too, I'll just reiterate, I think it was, really early on when the ED 279 first came out, Mr. English just said it just very concisely, very nicely, right? Like this year, because of the evaluations, the state is saying, you pay more money locally to get less from the state. So that offset right there on a required local share is what's tipping, that 7.41, and why that looks so different than the 2.2.
Yeah, so I congratulate you on the effort that you put in here. It's a significant reduction from our original budget, and I heard several times from people, I think I'm not sure exactly what towns they were from, so I won't try and single out a single town. But I did hear from Litchfield that they were looking at something closer to 5% increase. I mean, this takes it from 9 to 6. I mean, to get to 5.25% would take another 80,000. It would take a reduction of 772,000 to bring them at 5.28% increase. So people need to know that to bring this down is to get closer to a number that they had hoped to get closer to, and they are much closer to it. That would be another 80,000 that would have to come out from programs or personnel, and personnel or programs as well. So I think 6 is much closer to 5 than the 9 that they were at, and hopefully that would satisfy those people that were hoping to get the number down closer to 5. It's always difficult to cut the budget. I've been through it in Wales before we combined one time, but then people got together and petitioned and it all got put back, but that's probably not going to happen here. So I think the proposed reductions are well thought out, and I don't have a problem supporting those, because the reality is that currently right now 2 of those positions, well, all 3 of those positions aren't filled, and so they're not really impacting opening day schedule per se that we can offer our students. So if we find that the pool opens up and next year's budget looks like we would not only need those positions, but that we could afford adding those positions, then I'm sure the board will think about all personnel and all budget items next year.
This,
Slides, or do you want to keep discussing?
yeah, the last slide is just the timeline. So I know why it's shortened up is the longer this goes, it's not good for morale. It's not good, it just, we need, there's no more, we've put out information. What we're trying to do is meet where we believe the communities say, okay, now we can afford the programming. So this is quicker, yes, that August 30th, we added that for next week to approve the budget. It also is an opportunity to, if the teacher contract has been ratified by the union, you will be voting on the teacher contract that evening as well. And then we have to post for 7 days, so right after the next day, we'll be arriving at the towns. It will be to post for the public meeting on the 7th, and then the referendum vote on the 19th. And really what we would do with our mailing is update the numbers. Pretty much what we did here. This is what they were, this is what they are now. But the reasons for everything we need are still the same.
So in the last mailing, or at least we didn't really have, I don't recall the tax impact and all the numbers that went out for a lot of information. So people were kind of at a loss in lines. They're used to seeing that every time, even when we've had to do it multiple times. So you have a nice package here that shows the rate for each town and the percentage of increases in home value tax. So
I believe we did increase.
Yeah,
I
but the
didn't- well, we
final
didn't-
one, we didn't do the other one.
yeah, we didn't,
Yeah,
but we didn't present it at the budget meeting.
correct.
pretty
We didn't
sure.
get to that point, yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll make sure we have that. So that's our slide, so
Do you want to start? Or am I-
I know over the last 2 months in the community, I've met people, and it seems like the questions that they ask are kind of like what they hear from other people on the street, their neighbors, and stuff like that. And because we know they're not coming to the meetings, or they're not getting the information off of YouTube or anything like that. But I'm wondering if there's a way that we could put out like a frequently asked question page that people could type into, and then we could answer those questions. So the community would have a place to ask the question and get an answer. It might not be the answer that they would like to hear, but at least it would be an answer that would be coming from us and not from somebody else. Like I've heard, why aren't we cutting more administrators? How come the teachers aren't getting a raise, but the budget keeps going up? And all those questions that you hear out in the community. And I think we need to get this information is great, because I think it's but to get them to look at it and understand it, that's the problem. But if people can ask the question and and just get an answer from us, I think it would go a long way with people to understand, because that information would go out, because they would get an answer to their individual question.
Yeah, when Kathy and I talked about that, Kathy
Yeah.
said that you had that for, I believe, COVID.
Yeah.
So we could do a Google doc, that they put in to
Right.
ask a question. We would get notified that somebody asked a question,
Right.
then we would answer it, and then that would be published.
Yeah.
So yes, we've talked about adding something there that people could ask a question.
I'm just going to randomly start calling. Oh, Diane.
As a former third grade teacher, I'm happy about seeing the fourth grade teacher not being in there. It's transformed a lot of kids in the classroom for fourth grade. And, the issues there in the classroom is really rough. So that really hits home. I don't want to see that. And I know a lot of parents are not going to like that. That's a lot of kids.
Reminder that the educators, the teachers are the ones that made it that way. The teachers, right, Dustin? You said that the teachers made this decision together.
Do you come up to the mic, Dustin, and explain the thoughts around why third and not fourth.
I just want to get you up and down.
I know. So in the springtime, I did talk to the fourth grade team as we had a member leaving that was a possibility that this position might not be filled. After looking at the numbers, we had a couple move in today actually. So we're currently pretty close, about an 8 differential between third and fourth. If we were to say take out a third grade teacher, that would leave us at around 19 and bring the fourth grade numbers down. So it's a yo-yo, right? We also have a lot more, since Carrie Ricker is a third, fourth grade school, we have a lot more supports in place already for our fourth graders. We know our fourth graders, and there's less variables with our fourth graders. And so as a team, I've met with them and talked to them, and they know that we have to make this decision. It's a tough one. It's not easy, but we're all moving forward with it.
On the retirements, have those positions been filled already, or are those going to be, is there any kind of savings to be garnered from retirements that maybe aren't backfilled? You mentioned that we got a new math teacher, and you mentioned that we have a social worker that has been hired to replace the social worker. But you didn't mention anything about the part-time custodian or full-time health teacher for middle school.
That was filled. The health was filled.
The health.
The part-time custodian hasn't. If we also take the position out and then we take out that, there is no buffer at all. You're getting to a point where if anything were to happen, like what we're dealing with Libby Tozier, we have to absorb the cost of that. So you can go down and down and down, but then you're so tight that something can't happen. Like if something, suddenly we had bigger numbers occurring and you said, and we came back for a teacher, we may have funds there to say, okay, I think we now feel comfortable we could put that in because of the need now. So, yeah, that was considered at the beginning, the lever, when we started the budget development in the beginning was what would we put in a new position, like an opening, what do we want to tag that amount for? So we're already taking in consideration that we may hire somebody here or we might hire somebody here. So it's just, it doesn't leave you any, we didn't go down to that minute of a spot to say, okay, could we save another 10 there?
So we have been watching that. Our
Yeah.
payroll department is doing an excellent job of monitoring, with a spreadsheet that is live where we are tracking changes in benefits. We have
Back.
just to, you know,
Oh,
people
yeah.
will pay attention to that. where-
Definitely.
Especially, we said last time that there was a science teacher position that we filled, or didn't fill it, I'm sorry, we filled the math.
Correct. Yeah. You're right. No, that's right. Those are things you should be asking of. Did you consider this? Yeah, absolutely.
Brandon?
This is a lot of information to digest at one point. I don't know. I think I can see most of this, except for the positions that are open. And I get that they're open and we're still looking, but what does that change as far as the dynamic goes? That if those are taken out, we're not looking. So what's the plan going forward? Are we just accepting that now these open positions are gone and we're going to do away with it and figure it out for the long term? Or I think it would be more difficult to try to add those three back in the next time if we decided we wanted it, because of how far we've had to back to take it out. That's just my take.
Yeah, and I'm with Diane. I'm not really happy with the classroom sizes in fourth grade, but I understand that, you know, everybody's working as a team, and I get that. I'm just worried that the amount of time that teachers have to spend on behavioral issues and just everyday things that go on in the classroom. 21 kids is a pretty large group, and especially with the things that our teachers have to deal with today. So I'm kind of hoping that it goes good, and we kind of hope that the best scenario happens. But yeah, I can support the cuts, and I would just hope that everything works out. That's all we can do at this point.
Bob?
Yeah, I've already said quite a bit. But I do support what's there. I just mention a couple of things. On our ED 279, there's a ratio of students per teacher that we get. The state says, I'm not sure what that is for the fourth grade level.
I think it's 1 in 2. Oh, I'm not gonna
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't.
I can go find it though.
Well, I
I mean,
know,
for
and-
next week I could bring that, but yeah, it's I think it's.
Don't guess.
I'm not going to guess.
All right, because
Don't put yourself
then
in
that
that
number gets out there.
Yeah,
Exactly.
don't put yourself in that
I
spot.
mean, Kathy, you
down
could
the-
try to pull up.
Yeah. So, and the other thing is in third and fourth grade, if we have to have larger class sizes, it's better to do that in the high school and then next in the middle school and last in the lower school, in the lower grades, because that's where you really need the more one-on-one. So that's unfortunate. However, in saying that, if our staff is following the board's policies and goals that it established in the past years of students really being fluent between grades, put them where their level is, then I would imagine that we probably, and because we never hold students back, right, bad for their self-esteem, there will be some fourth graders that need to really be in a third grade class for some subjects, and there's probably third graders that need to be in the fourth grade class for some subjects. And I believe last time there was always the teachers getting together and grouping and regrouping the students. So it might not always be 21, so hopefully we haven't abandoned that philosophy that was pretty strongly felt by the board that was in place over the years that we considered it and implemented it. And maybe if it has been abandoned or slacked off, maybe it's time for a new board to go and look at it and see what makes sense. It certainly makes more sense when you have more grades in one building. You have some third graders that could be taking fifth grade something or other. We just know that happens. And some fifth graders that might still need third grade support. So I think you've done a great job. I don't know if we didn't remove the fourth grade teacher where we would find an offset someplace else to go and make up to try and get the budget down to what we might think is an acceptable level. The science teacher, 100,000, that's got to come someplace. So I think you've done a great job. I thank you for your efforts.
Laura?
I agree. It's a lot to kind of to take in. I'm having a hard time with the teacher positions being cut because I've had children with 28 kids in the classroom and know, can only imagine what some of that looks like. I do think that I was interested that maybe adult ed didn't come up again for any cuts, as opposed to like in the classroom instruction, because I think we've talked a few times as a board that in the classroom is where we didn't want to see any cuts, right? And then looking at the administrative position for the buses and or maintenance and facilities and transportation, and it's interesting too with all of the majority of the bus drivers taking their buses home and all of the expenses, and not really, I don't feel like that was looked at maybe as much as it could be with the potential cost savings versus being at the bus garage. I think too with that assistant position, I just find it difficult to support that when for years it was being done with the nutrition and that, and with so now we're paying Lisbon that $50,000, and and now an assistant to that position and all of these things. I just kind of,
Laura, we cut that position.
I saw that in
Okay.
there. But also there was a payroll clerk, right, that we added or
No.
something like that in the administration
No, there's no additions.
last year's budget.
No.
No.
You have a payroll and you have a accounts payable position. You have
And
two
those-
positions.
So how long have those been?
Since RSU,
Yeah,
I was
since it was
gonna say.
formed.
Yeah, didn't we talk about a position for the business manager?
No.
I'll look back through
Look
my
back
notes.
on your, no, we didn't. I think Scott brought up subcontracting. That's the only thing we've discussed. The adult ed has already been approved.
Okay.
So that tax commitment has already been, the towns have been notified about both nutrition and adult ed. That was already approved. But no, there's no, so in the central office is my position, the business manager, the assistant superintendent position. Then we have an administrative assistant. And then we have an administrative assistant to special ed with the special ed director. Then we have a payroll and accounts payable. Then we have the director of operations. Then we have the technology director. And then we have a data specialist position. Those are the positions at central office.
But not within cost center 6. Right. They're
Correct. They
spread
go
out in
where they go.
different-
Exactly. They
Yeah.
go where they go. Yes. Correct.
Anything else?
The only other thing I just wrote down is the opportunity again for interns as we kind of think about next year's budget a little bit too, with the opportunity for maybe interns with high school kids helping with maybe some of the technology pieces or the maintenance or anything like that we could help support some further education on that, but also then maybe it would help relieve some of those costs through the summer.
Scott?
Thank you. I'm pretty impressed with the cuts that you made. I was expecting to come in here and see a much lower number, so that it came in higher. I was actually pretty impressed by that. However, that being said, I feel like the constituents are not going to be pleased with where the cuts are coming from. I mean, myself included, we don't want to see classroom cuts. That's the last place anybody wants to have any cuts. And I'm pretty disappointed we didn't see anything coming from the top. I think we're administration heavy. That's all.
Christy?
Yes, I'm here. I agree. It is a lot to take in. And to Scott and Laura's point, and to
So I'm still kind of hearing like this 50-50 about what was here. Everybody is proud of what they've done and what you're seeing, but are we moving forward with this for next week? Is this what you want to see? Or are you looking for them to cut something else?
Like personally, I mean, with the teachers' positions, I'm not 100% on board with those being off. But at the same time, with the course reimbursement, if we're worried about morale, if we have teaching positions that are leaving, and we're kind of, to me, that looks like we're not backing up the teachers that we currently have, saying, I get this was the thing that we did, but we can't offer as much. So I think that would be a bigger hit to morale, that the teachers that are already there are going to have issues covering that tuition reimbursement thing. That's how it looks to me. So if we're taking out teaching positions that are potentials to be filled, that would take, some of the burden off others to kind of spread it out, which everyone wants. But at the same time, if you're having a hard time reimbursing tuition, it's not a big draw to want to be there. So if you have open positions that aren't being filled and current teachers not getting reimbursed, I think that's going to cause a bigger problem.
Just want to clarify, we're not going to pay people the course reimbursement. I just want
Right, but-
the opt-in. We doubled the money.
Right, but we had mentioned the list and things. And
Yeah.
now it turns into
Right.
this hurry up and get it or you're going to miss out kind of thing. And I think that would add a layer of franticness to the whole thing that I don't
Okay.
think is good.
Yeah. I just want you to know that with $25,000 in the budget, we met the course reimbursement. So what I'm trying to assure you is we would look again at those buckets, which are title grants that we have, to help mitigate the 50,000 to what might be needed beyond the 50,000. Because we're not sure if people who were taking courses are still with us. We're not sure. People put it in a survey. We could certainly survey again to see where we are. So, we would do our best to reimburse.
Were there any positions added, teaching positions added? Was there a teacher removed from or a teacher leaving a classroom to do a new position?
No. You mean, the PBIS position?
Yeah.
Yes, that was a grant-funded position.
So she'll be paid through grant.
Correct. Yes. No, there's no new positions in the budget.
So is that a 1 year?
It would be as long as the grant can support it, and there's a need for it. And,
So if you're not happy with this, where do you want to see the reductions? Laura, Scott, anyone?
Why do you automatically go to lower reductions?
Because you're the one that wants them.
I didn't say that at this meeting, did I? I had said a couple of other areas, but I think, you can have my stipend. You can have, honestly, you can have my stipend.
You can do what I do and give it back. I gave
Give
it
it back.
to- I gave it to one
You
of our
can keep it.
programs a few years.
You can keep it to keep the science positions.
wouldn't be enough.
You got to pay it, and then you.
So, because so to move on, we have to let them know. Are they moving on with the current numbers that they gave us, or are we cutting someplace else?
I just want to say, if Laura's giving back her stipend and we can keep the science teacher, she's getting a lot bigger stipend than I am.
Bob?
Yeah, so I think we've got this with digested. We know the numbers. We all have some issue with something on there. But I think that the discussion in a week from now is going to be from input that we get back from our constituents. Hopefully people will talk to us. I've had one person talk to me in the community. And so that's the only input that I've got from my people that I represent. But I think if word gets out and what this is, maybe we'll get more. It's going to be difficult to take something else versus what we've already identified, because it's going to be another position, or it's going to be a program, right? And those all have direct impacts too. So, you know, I think that we need to think about it. If, you know, obviously they have given it a lot of thought, so if people come back with hard, fast things instead of just big balloons on just look at this, then that's what they should come back with, and we can discuss those. And at the end of that meeting, we will have had a consensus, hopefully, and that we can, maybe not a consensus, but a majority to go and approve the budget to go forward.
So then we'll continue to feel it out, talk to people, then you guys can come back next week, and we will have a final.
Douglas is done.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't.
No, that's all right. I guess I kind of wanted to summarize my view from meeting with people. It seems like if we just approve this as is, where nobody is going to be happy at all between the classroom cuts and the people that would like the tax effect to be lower. I think that we're really making it so that everybody is very unhappy if we just we kind of, it does need some deeper thought with like other areas to address with it. Because I know one of the numbers that was thrown out by about $1 million for Litchfield, it would be a happy point. That's a casual kind of number. I think closer to that end, as Litchfield has proven with their voting, that I think that if we went with this would barely pass, and there would be anger associated with the barreliness. I honestly, just from people that I'm talking to, I don't know if Richmond has it in them to pass even the numbers that are there. I don't know if, just from talking to people, I think it would require some more thought. I hate to say that. It's not my personal belief, but I'm just trying to speak for the constituents that I'm supposed to be representing.
Okay, so we will revisit. See, now that's why I call on you all the time, Laura and Scott.
I'm just picking on you, Joe. So would we be able to take a vote at the moment of the opportunity to propose that we don't want to cut in the classroom, but we'd like to see a cut in administration someplace else? For feedback for the superintendent to go back and have a different conversation.
You can ask them to do that, but I'm not sure where in administration that you guys are looking, so that's something you would have to let them know where you're wanting. Because everybody is contracted.
So as as Christy said, Scott, myself, like people, are concerned, right, with the cost of administration, and feel like this is a safe place a little bit, but versus it's still taking time to digest it, but would it make sense for a direction? Like a bunch of us have said we don't want it in the classroom. Where else could it be? Is there other opportunity for the next meeting to have a different discussion on that?
That'll be up to you.
I guess to piggyback with that, I kind of get the impression that some cost centers are no longer viable because they've been approved through the like adult ed, right? Wasn't that cost center?
That's a different article.
Different thing altogether.
Correct.
So all 11 cost centers
Are still there, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, if what I'm hearing is in order to save the teachers, you would like us to find $241,000 from administration. No, I want to, let's lay it out.
Yeah.
We're going to lay it out,
It's the same.
right?
Yeah.
So one administrative position is not, it may get you one teacher, right? And then you're going to have discussions about who's doing the work of that person. And then assuming that the people left are willing to do that work with no more discussion around compensation. So I guess you haven't said what position, so who is going to say the position?
I actually would like to say, I don't think it's a matter of money, to be honest. I really think it's a matter of principle.
Right.
The board received a well-written letter today from a gentleman who said that he would not support the budget if there were no cuts in administration. I think that's just a general consensus of everybody in the community.
Right, so you would like to have a conversation just so, so that people understand why administration positions are a valued position. And, and so that there's an understanding that just like this, what's the impact? I gave you the impact if a teacher left. I gave you all that facts. So I would do the same thing of the impact of an administration position. What I'm asking is which administration position would you like impact on?
Probably two.
Two, okay?
At
So
least,
give them to
I
me.
mean, to get that
I-
dollar
right,
amount.
Yeah, right, to get 241,000.
I'm not sure it has to be that dollar amount, to be honest.
Just, right, all right, so if it's one, do you have one in particular you
I mean,
would
you
like
have
to
some
know?
other cuts, so perhaps, you keep some of these cuts and then explore some other options. Maybe moving full-time positions to half-time. Going back to the days where we had the head custodian taking care of some facilities things versus having an administrator for that.
And I mean, I'm kind of.
So are you talking about all of, no, well, no, that's why we're having this discussion.
Yeah.
You want to know impact of cutting every administrator at the central office? Is that what, okay, so can you give me a little more, I have to have direction for next week.
Yeah, I think we need to have a discussion about it specifically and
So-
break everything down.
What's everything and what do you?
All the administration.
Every administrator in the district.
How many is that? Just, no, I mean, it's a long discussion. I just-
So you
to
have,
be
you
honest.
have Litchfield has two, you have covering two schools. You have Sabatis Primary with one. You have the middle school, there's one position in the budget. And at the high school, you have two positions. And then I told you what you have at central office. But so. So there's, right.
Just for, again, a long discussion going through, it seems like roughly 30 people-ish. I mean, right, multiple.
No,
Yeah,
that was five.
About 10.
Five, 10,
10
yeah,
was
10
I
positions.
forget how many were at
Yeah,
the
there's
central
probably about
office. So
15
I thought there were
altogether,
50.
right? Just about
Yeah, 15.
15 altogether.
It depends on what you call administration.
Yeah.
All right, I mean, the payroll clerk is administration, but it's probably not up for the grabs for discussion because they want to get paid. All right, you talk about morale, don't pay them. All right, so, and, well, if we're going to have that discussion, I'll save my comments on why we have some of these positions that we have. And I think the necessity to maintain them, but we don't cut the science teacher and we don't fill it, which is probably what's going to happen. All right. So now we will have saved $100,000 because we won't spend it, and we will have cut $100,000, let's say, out of administration. So we didn't have that position; those people do the job. So we actually end up missing two people instead of just one. So I don't think that there's very many businesses out there that are $20+ million businesses, and we're far more than that when we consider all the grants and other funding that we have that we don't see in these numbers for the total education, that reduce the number of people that are in charge to make sure that everything works correctly and is controlled. So we may very well be, I don't know, 25, 28 million. I don't know what the number is with all the grants, but it's got to be probably at least 25. So we need people to go and make sure that those funds are properly spent and that we can provide the services. And it's difficult to ask one person to take on the duties of somebody else if we cut that without going to bargaining on impact, which would certainly end up in probably costing us more for that position. So we have all those things getting considered. You cut a position, chances are someone else's position is going to get paid more. So you're not getting the full dollar, maybe 60 cents on the dollar.
I guess with that kind of mediator, is it maybe if there were 3 positions that through discussion with people as like a show of faith, if we're cutting a teacher position, is there an administrative position that 3 people could spread into 2 people? I don't know. They could divvy up work or something. because it seems like a lot of, like, the science teachers had to work out a plan on how to deal with 5 teachers worth of caseload and only 4 teachers. Could administration figure out any of that? Is that something that could be offered as like a suggestion? Again, I'm not I guess I'm just trying, from everything I'm hearing and from what I've been told and talking about people, it seems like that would be at least a show of, it's kind of coming from all aspects, not just teachers, but administration and facilities kind of had some of that as well done. I'm just throwing a suggestion out. It's not a lot.
I think that's a great suggestion.
I mean, this will be the first, and not that, I'm just saying there are people in these positions currently. So there's a lot of factors playing in, and now people may start looking for other jobs. So when things have opened, we have looked at whether that position is, I showed you impact, and I listen, I get it. Central office is always a target, okay? So I hear you, and there were positions we filled because we did believe that they had a high impact. They didn't make the list. Guidance counselor, social worker, okay? Math teacher, we went with that. These are positions we stand by that our programming will continue to service students. They're open positions, and they are going to serve the students and the programming, or we would not have put the position on the list. We were very thoughtful that when a position opened, so an administrative position opened, if an administrator left tomorrow, yes, we would have the same conversation we had when the teacher positions opened. It would be the exact same conversation, which is what do we do now that there's an opening? How are we going to move things around? And how are we going to be able to fill it? It would be the same exact conversation. So when things open, it's an opportunity to look to see. So, oh, there goes mine. I don't understand either. No. So that is it a hard sell? I think administrators are a target in every district when it comes to reductions, and we have been very thoughtful. And you can tell people these are valuable positions. That they're the people behind the curtain that get a lot of work done. Can we come back and tell you impact on somebody, talk about morale, somebody's job, and what that savings really is? Because it's not going to be dollar for dollar. It's not looking at my salary and say that whole amount would come out. It would not. There's a lot of factors that play into people's contracts and paying vacation time, paying when they have 90-day clauses. It's not as simple as take that money and impact of not having a superintendent. What would that cost? So, but we will give you impact like we did for the other positions. The difference is these are not open positions. These people are in the positions. But we certainly will have a conversation. Not that we didn't know this is already out there. We also read social media.
Robbie, and then we're gonna let Robbie talk,
Yeah.
and then we'll move on to different
Yeah,
discussions.
I saw Will's post today, and I answered him as best I could, and Will was a board member here, and I get it. But the problem is that I've been here when we had 3 superintendents in 4 years. We had revolving door principals coming in, and we weren't paying them the industry average for a district our size. They would be here a year and a half, find a new job, and we would end up having to hire a new principal. And you want to see the morale of the staff go down? Let them work under 3 principals in 4 years. The morale of the staff goes down because every principal comes in, wants to make an impact, wants to change things that teachers aren't on board with, and the morale goes, and then the teachers start to go. And they go to districts where the administrators are stable, have been there a while, and so I get it, but it's not like somebody is sitting in an office doing nothing. And that's perception I get from the public when they talk about the assistant principal or the assistant superintendent. That's not all they do. And I think it's doing a disservice to the people in those positions if we can't look at those constituents and say that they're doing the job that we direct them to do because that's what they do. So consequently, if we want to get back to the revolving door superintendent, the revolving door principal, the revolving door business manager, sure, we can make the cuts, but I can guarantee you I have seen it happen, and it'll happen again. And education goes down because it goes from the top to the middle to the bottom. And I'm not saying teachers are the bottom, but I'm saying if teachers do not have support, they will not stay in a district. They just won't because they don't feel valued. And we're getting to the point where our staff does not feel valued. And maybe not this board, but past boards have made the commitment to our administrators, to our teachers, our principals, to give them the compensation of districts that are our size. And every one of those was voted on at a board meeting, and we're okay. So we would be technically reneging on that deal if we start making cuts, big cuts in administration. And asking somebody to work half-time when they're doing full-time and a half already is not reasonable, and people will leave. That's just what's going to happen. So that's our decision. We'll live with the consequence. So I'm just letting you know. I've been here 24 years this year, and I've seen it happen, and it does not take long. People will leave if they don't feel valued.
Thank you, Robbie. So now we've charged, we're going to end discussion and kind of just move on. There you go. So we're going to move on to new business, 8.1, to approve the computation and the declaration of votes dated and attached here to be, and it is hereby approved, and further that the computation and declaration of votes be entered upon the records of Regional School Unit, number 4, the Regional School Unit, and further that a certified copy of computation and declaration of votes be sent to each of the municipal clerks with their school's regional school unit. I get him.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Discussion. No. As there's now a call for the vote. Scott,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Robbie,
Yes.
yes. Brandon,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
Diane, and Christy.
Yes.
All right. 8.2, to discuss the purpose, membership, and application process for the new board committee, referred to as the RSU4 Facilities and Fields Committee. So inside your packets and also in your email, you guys received the declaration. Do we have any discussion?
Yeah, I had two things. First of all, I think our current facilities committee had been tasked with looking at consolidation, which is one of the things that's mentioned that this committee is going to take over. So that's, I guess we're supposed to be getting a lot of information when we came back this take up business again, because it was kind of hung over for the. The second thing, I find it somewhat offensive that following a discussion to go and cut money and staff, whether it's teachers or administrators, whatever, from the budget to get it passed, that one of the things that this committee is specifically, and it's the only thing specifically addressed, is to consider adding a turf field. Why, when we form a committee, do we charge it to look at one thing specific when there are fields overall? The cost of a turf field to put in, and we can't keep a science teacher or an administrator, I think that that should be stricken so that including the consideration of adding a turf field and just addressing Oak Hill High School fields. If they, within the definition of turf and fields, they can address all of it. But to specifically put in a turf field when we're trying to cut positions and the money that would go and cost, I think should not be in the purpose of this committee at all.
Any answer to that? So, a couple things, which is the reason that there was discussion around having a new facility fields was to involve more members rather than just the facility and finance. And often it was hard to get to that conversation because you had a lot of things on the agenda. So this was to really have community members, and I don't know if people in the public see it, but having each town have a representative, having a member from the selectmen, everybody at that, so it's more of a building facility looking forward and taking the feasibility study. So that was the rationale. The reason the turf field is absolutely we would not add funding for a turf field. This was, we have an opportunity at a grant that is a matching fund grant. So it was to bring that forward to this committee to discuss that grant and the fundraising that would have to be done, obviously, if the community. So it's an opportunity to have community members have a conversation around that concept. That's why it was there. I just wanted to explain, Bob, why.
Maybe we could fundraise for a math teacher.
Maybe we could. Yep. So, right, timing is everything. It was just my belief that it was hard to get work done once a month in the Facility and Finance Committee. So it was really, this would be the charge of that committee. So you have the feasibility study in the budget. So when that gets done, that committee would take to digest that. That was the suggestion.
Yes, I, for one, don't support the new one. I think we have a facilities finance committee. If we need to meet a little bit more often, when we really get down to it, that it's the board, and then it goes out, and then you have public hearings and stuff like that. If you're ever talking about consolidation, you just don't make that up without having some public hearings and getting input from the community. And the people that usually have the most information, as you can tell from our attendance and online, are the people that are on the board. And other people will get on it maybe because they have a single point of view and not just education as a whole is one of course. Those are my thoughts on this committee under the discussion of it.
Anyone else?
I was thinking maybe we could consider it as a workshop option instead of forming an actual committee around it. So then if you establish a workshop to have the sub meetings or things based off from the actual finance and facilities, I would vote to move it to a workshop instead of forming another committee.
I'm not following you. Can you explain what you mean by workshop?
To do like sub meetings that maybe not a specific membership to them, that anyone could kind of attend as they wanted to. I think lots of places kind of do workshops.
Well, they do like a workshop if we were getting input. The model comes from my experience with the new Edward Little High School project. It was a facilities committee that people applied to be on, and you want a diverse viewpoint. So you want people in the schools, you want people not in the schools, you want people that might have, you're inviting all the towns. So there's not this group decide everything, didn't get input. But your workshops of if the facility and finance committee did it and then they wanted to hold a workshop to get feedback, that's part of obviously getting input from the community is running those type of workshops. Yes.
Yeah, just reading through this summary, I don't see anything here that we couldn't task the Finance and Facilities Committee with. So I wouldn't support this either. I think if we task them with the existing committee with some of these items, I mean, there's no reason they can't call community members in. The athletic director could attend, or the facilities maintenance director could attend, people from the community, grant writers, landscapers, I don't know, whoever you need to call in, but it seems like we could just stick with the current committee and not form a new one.
Anyone else?
If I may add, so once we get the feasibility study back and we've done our analysis of classroom space and et cetera, and those types of things, at that point, that's when you would want to do, and I think Laura has a great idea, workshops that go and bring people in and lay out the information that we have and the pros and cons that we see out there and the different things, and get inputs and get the difference between Lewiston and here is Lewiston was one city, and unfortunately we still have this division. We don't consider ourselves one. We consider ourselves three. So, it's like trying to have a committee member from each town on there instead of an RSU4 board member. And that's been a really tough nut to go and crack, to consider as just one school unit and working for everybody's best interest. As soon as you start breaking it down to towns and they have different tax rates, then you get different types of things. So I think Laura has a great idea. I think once the facilities committee gets the information and looks at it and has it together and then comes up with some what ifs, then you bring other people in, selectmen, community members, and kind of lay it out and get their feedback and try and refine it and come down to eventually to come with a single recommendation to come to the board to go for the board's consideration.
Okay, so now I just need a little thumbs up, thumbs down of yes or no, should we continue with the charge? This isn't a vote. We just, do we need to continue? Are you wanting to continue with the charge and bring it to vote to a new committee? So yes for a thumbs up, no thumbs down.
Christy's got a thumbs up, just for the record.
Oh. Sorry. All right, so we will move down to 8.3 to approve the RSU4 emergency management plan. Anybody?
I'd second it.
Okay, any discussion? Katie, do you have-
Well,
Are we gonna move
if,
in?
If they would like if you would like to hear, are you prepared to vote, or you would like to hear more information on the?
Emergency management plan?
Yeah.
Well, the motion's been made. Now we
Right.
go and get all the information
Okay.
before we vote, right?
Right.
I mean, you can't discuss it till you have a motion on the floor.
So hang on a second.
Was this what the executive session was supposed to be for?
No, I have some slides to go over it first, so I can do that, and then you can go in executive session.
Right, but to vote
Okay.
on the full plan is not right now.
Correct.
So this is just to discuss the RSU4 management plan, not to vote on it.
You're.
This is to approve.
Yeah,
That's
you're
the
going to
vote on.
approve it, so you're going to go in executive session before you do the vote.
We can't do that with a motion on the floor. I guess we could suspend the motion
Yeah.
and table it till, and then we'd have to take it off the table when we came back from executive session. Right, and then you could substitute in information, public information on the emergency plan.
So,
Then we go executive session, and then
Then
we
we
can
come
come
up to
back to
vote.
approve it.
So should I withdraw?
yes, please.
And I withdraw my second.
So now we'll just move on to the discussion of the public RSU4 emergency plan.
So Jonathan prepared some slides, and so we can go to the next slide.
You might need the mic.
As you know, that Jonathan and the safety committee has been working really hard on this. So part of the director of operations role and responsibility is the Safe Schools Plan. And so he has been participating in a lot of the professional development that's offered. He went this summer to several sessions that were offered as part of the Department of Education Summit. He's participated in online discussions with FEMA and gotten really educated on what does a plan need to look like and how to best serve our school in making it a safe place for students, especially in response to a crisis situation. So he's followed the FEMA guidance. He's looked at legislation and talked to the Maine School Safety Center. And then, of course, with our ALICE training that's coming up, the first workshop day. And also I want to offer an invitation to school board members, if you would like to be part of seeing that, certainly let me know and I can tell you what time that is. Next slide. So to the plan overview so that the public understands the components of it, it has to be annually approved by law. So you will see this again next year around the same time. If we, to approve it, we would let you know if there's any substantial changes to it, and then you annually approve it. Then we have to keep record of changes. So the components are finalized. There's some small details that are still, like phone numbers or things like that, that aren't going to change what the plan is about, that are still in draft. Then the plan is distributed in different versions, which the next slide we'll talk about. There's an introduction, and then there's a way that it talks about mitigation and prevention. So what do you do to prevent or mitigate anything of a crisis happening, so that we have, for example, don't prop doors, right? Your doors are supposed to be shut, and that would be one of those mitigating things. And then you have preparedness, response, and recovery. Those are sections about how do you get prepared, how do you respond to something, and then what is the recovery. All of our administrators are taking 4 classes online that are required for certification. We have to have those certificates to show that we've had the full training, and there are 4, and they take about maybe 4 to 6 hours apiece. So that's what our administrators and central office directors have been working on this summer to take. And then there's different annexes with specific school information. And then there's hazard specifics, like what if there's a tornado, or what if there's an oil spill, things like that. So to address other things beyond what most people think of as an active shooter response, they're responding to a lot of different things that might happen. What do you do if an ambulance has to be called, and things like that. Next slide. So the superintendent's office has the black version, which is the locked one. It's a very thick. It has everything in it that the district needs in their plan. And then we do an abbreviated, which is version red, and that's in the principal's office. We give it to our local fire EMS, our local county and state police, and then the county EMA. So you'll see a sample of that when we go in executive session. And then there's one in the principal's office. That's the green version, which is what parents can see as part of the plan. So that will be available. Jonathan will have that ready, so that if a parent says, can I see the overview of the plan, that would be in the principal's office. So there's different layers of releasing information. Some is confidential and some can be public. So that just covers just globally what goes into it. And then executive session will dive deeper into the confidential areas.
The number 9, committee reports. There are no committee reports. 10, board member comments. I would ask that you keep them brief if you are going to have a comment, so that we can move on into executive session and finish up with our meeting. Anyone have any comments? Diane?
I've been over to the middle school and I've worked in interviews, and I noticed the ground over there, as you walk in, it's not very welcoming. There's weeds coming out of the sides and everything. I would hope that's done and cleaned up before the first day of school.
Anyone else?
Just wanted to say thank you to addressing the kind of budget and the concerns and trying to balance all of that. It's not easy. It's probably not going to be easy next year. It's never easy, as a lot of us aren't specifically in the district, but we all do kind of have jobs or had them before, and it's definitely challenging. So I just appreciate the honesty and able to kind of have a discussion about it. I do encourage anyone that's listening. I know people listen after YouTube as well. I as well have heard tons of chatter, whether it's at the market or different places. And I just encourage people to I encourage people to talk about it, because if you don't talk about it, then you don't get your questions maybe answered. And I do think that sometimes, it's very important sometimes just to listen and maybe not react to things that people say or do. Listening is a great thing, and we can all do maybe a little better job at that sometimes. So, and thank goodness there's 1 week left before school starts. Like, bless you guys. We're ready.
I'd just like to make 2 quick points for the public record and be completely transparent with everybody. I just want to express my disappointment in the decision to migrate our kids to the middle school without a softer transition with an open house prior to the opening of school. And the second thing is really disappointed with the reduction in the hours for the resource officer in the primary schools. I think we're doing the younger students a tremendous disservice.
I'm hoping that in the next meeting, that when all the information is coming to light, one, I hope a lot more people are going to tune in on YouTube, and everybody here can spread to see this, because I think it's going to help illustrate a lot of what's going on in the schools and whatnot, and how important all of the people are involved. I'm hoping that with the transparency that we're trying to go towards, that I'm a firm believer that education really helps answer a lot of these things. So I kind of hope that the more people that can see firsthand by YouTube video watching all this transparency that's going to be going on in the next meeting, that it'll help the vote one way or another, or at least understand where the numbers are coming from more, because I keep hearing that a lot as to why. So I'm hoping transparency will help with that, make it very clear.
So, 11, executive session. To enter into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA 4056F, confidential information regarding the emergency management plan.
So moved.
All those in favor, Scott? I have to do a roll call. Scott?
Yes.
Laura? Bob?
Yes.
Robbie?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
Brendan? Douglas? Diane? And how is that working for Christy? Christy, are you there? Is Christy still there?